before we jump in too far along, I think it's appropriate to get a little bit of your background. You can tell us a little bit about yourself. There's kind of a lot going on from the way it seems. So, however you want to categorize yourself or what you want to prioritize, I'll leave that part up to you. Um, and then we'll kind of dig in a little bit and see what's going on.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. Thanks, Nicole, for being here with us today. I'm excited to talk with you both. Yeah, as you say, Erin, my background is multiplicitous. I have lived many professional lifetimes in my short lifetime to date, and my background experience spans from spending 10 years in the world of high finance and real estate development, all the way to spending a year doing field research with large megafauna and ocean creatures off the coast of Africa. So I have had a very diverse range of seeing sort of different human paradigms, different experiences of life on planet Earth, from living amidst tribal people in a subsistence way, and even spending significant time with hunter-gatherers in different parts of Africa, all the way to traversing the spaces of high finance in New York and San Francisco, and then living a really outdoor-focused, adventurous country life in between. But what ties the threads of my experience together is looking for ways to create positive impact on planet Earth. And as I've grown older and gained more clarity about where I want to invest my time and energy here in this life experience, I've become really, really focused on our ability as humans to create art that creates life. And I really use that as a guiding principle of my life and work now, because I've recognized that if I center my life on creating the art that I want to make, then the life that I want follows that in turn. So in addition to being an artist, I also really, really enjoy talking with other artists about how to make that possible for themselves, how to make that shift to becoming creators and making a life that they love, to increase the peace and the harmony and the beauty that we're experiencing here together.
Yeah, that's great. The first thing that came to mind is like something to kind of spark an interest on my end was just the idea of art being that kind of generative force. Most times you think, well, I create the art, not like I'm creating the art to make the impact or create the life that I envision or something like that. So how does that kind of like play out in your world, in your terms?
So when it comes to creating art that creates life, and then that life being generative of creating more art, I have a specific response in mind, and I'm also really interested to hear from Nicole, because I know, Nicole, you work across media too, and so I wonder how this applies in your life. But for me personally, the practice of writing, and writing poetry in particular, only comes through my movement and devotional practice. So in order to be in a mental and physical space where the poetry is coming through me, I access those spaces through yoga, through meditation, and through my devotional practices of communing with the earth, which for me involve really, really deep listening. I pray by listening, not by speaking. So when I am in that mode of listening and poetry moves through me and onto the page, that's the first little seed of a creative process or creative project that is being planted. And in the context of expressing my poetry across media this past 2 years, I've had the pleasure of collaborating with other artists to grow my poems into songs and creating original music for the poetry to sort of nestle into and allow me to express the poetry in my own voice instead of just only in my own words. So really to explore the carrying capacity of my voice and what I can communicate in terms of emotion and just those levels of communication that we are capable of as humans that are out beyond words. So the poem starts to crack open its shell and grow little sprouts and bloom into something unexpected in song form. And that process of inviting other artists in to collaborate, where they're pouring their sound magic in with my word magic, suddenly there's something new that's growing there. And that is an ignition point for me, where I know that as an artist, instead of just making a static thing, I am actually gathering fuel, right? Like that process gives me energy and a fire in my soul that really helps me create new, additional, interesting things and carry that energy into how I do the rest of my life, how I love my family, how I grow my food, how I pay attention to the world around me. And from that experience of living life more richly and in a more connected way, then that puts me in a better place to practice that deep listening for more and more art to come through. So that's the spiral that I feel myself writing when I'm really dedicated to the process of creating, especially across media, and thinking about my daily life as part of what I'm making, as an offering to honoring myself and honoring the earth.
I love that.
Yeah.
I know I'm so like bad at deciphering when I should jump in, but no, actually I'm like really pretty stoked that Erin asked me to be on this, because I feel like we have very similar ways of kind of like interacting with the environment, and like we work in different media, but like as far, I mean, poetry is a point at which like, you know, we have like we share common ground and that kind of thing. And like I very much I guess like when like my poetry process is very much like rooted in my like personal experiences and like communing with nature and like getting outside and being out there. I think that's like where honestly like all of my creative inspiration comes, like in a lot of ways the most like powerfully, and has been that way like my whole life. I grew up by the beach, and kind of like as I've like grown and experienced more spaces and kind of like developed like a greater passion for traveling and having kind of like all of these different ways of interacting with the environment, that's just like snowballed itself, you know, and my creative work. And so it kind of, I think like very much in the same way, like it all starts in this kind of like 2D form, you know. I have got like journals where I'm like scrawling just like stream of consciousness stuff that I'm experiencing and all of that kind of thing, like in the very much in the moment. And then it like makes its way further, you know, into a poem, or like a lot of times, you know, I'll have sketches that like end up on my like ceramic work, and it all is like coming from the same place though. So I love that idea of there just like being this seed that kind of like wedges itself into your brain, and then it like grows roots and, and starts like sprouting off all these different things. And like I find in a lot of ways that like one thing will inform the other. So it's like if I write a poem about something, you know, then like that same landscape still is like stuck in my brain, and I like have to figure out how to kind of like get it out onto something else. And like whether that's like through a picture I've taken, or you know, getting it onto like a piece of pottery or something like that, they all end up like invariably connected. And I recently kind of started this new body of like ceramic work where I am like making pieces. One, I've actually like taken my wheel like out into nature and like thrown pieces in the wild, which has been really fun. But at the same time, I've also kind of like kept pieces bisque, so they're like ready to have like surface decoration, and then like gone back in and taken them with me like on camping trips and sketched them like in real time and then come back and finished them in the studio. And then from there also just like incorporating also like lines of poetry that were like written in those spaces or inspired by those spaces. So it's like finding the ways in which like all of those things interconnect. Which is cool. So I relate to that kind of aspect of it being this just like spiral of like it like everything builds on top of each other, and like you end up with all these different ways of like maybe exploring the same experience but like in different methods, and just kind of like getting into that like deeper, I don't know, like connection to it, or I'm trying to think of like the right word, but maybe understanding.
Yeah, maybe layers of interpretation. But I agree that exploring one experience through different modalities gives us much more insight.